All right, hi everybody. My story is the tale of the exploding server room. I just want to say there's no ghosts or werewolves in my story, but I was listening to a podcast on the way over, the wonderful This American Life. And it turns out those don't actually exist. They're carbon monoxide poisoning and rabies. So stay away from carbon monoxide poisoning and rabies, and you'll probably have a much calmer and safer existence. That's my PSA for the holiday season. The other message I wanted to preface my story with was actually, I feel like I have kind of a lame story, but that's only because VM Farms has actually saved me from likely countless ops nightmares over the course of my career, which I'm very thankful for. But so I had to reach pretty far back into my history to think of something. And this is from back when I used to work for a financial institution. So again, very high stakes, lots of money flying around. Of course, very little attention paid to infrastructure or anything that keeps that running. Of course. I was a lone ops guy, and pretty early in my career. So what we had to do was one of the things that I quickly realized on that job was that we ran this little server room that had a bunch of hardware that basically supplied everything for the business. There was no there was no cloud providers at the time, so we were doing everything in-house. And we actually ran out of this tiny server room. Most of our stuff, it was air conditioning, there was a raised floors. Okay, we had server racks. But all of our power infrastructure was in this like unventilated storage room off to the side, which was just threatening to just explode and burn down the building at any moment. And it was, you could just hear it. Like no matter where you were on the floor, you could hear it just buzzing away, like I'm going to kill you all. It's just menacing, like the furnace in Home Alone. It was just like scary as hell. So on my suggestion, it was sort of brought to the higher ups that we should probably move that into the server room where it could be properly cooled and contained and hopefully placated. And so we planned this. Luckily, and something that I recommend to everybody, work in B2B and make sure that like your uptime window is like less than 24 hours a day. Because it means that you can do things like having a maintenance window every single day. So good. So good. Always do it. So we scheduled this for some random day. And I don't remember how we found the electricians to do this move. It was probably Craigslist. Like, we were just... I'm not joking at all. It's a horror story, man. So we got 3 bids, and we basically picked the middle one, like any good vetting process would, right? That's the criteria. That's the only criteria we had. And so, yeah, due diligence, that's what they call that, right? That's a thing. That's a term I recognize. So we line up these guys, and they show up, and we have them into the office and to spec out the whole thing, and they seem mildly competent. And I don't know any difference. I don't know an electrician from a arborist. But but the night comes, and of course, like the fully licensed pro electrician guy is there for like 5 minutes, and then it's nothing but like his journeyman apprentices like carrying out everything, right? So he just pieces out, and he's like, oh yeah, just do this and that, and then we're good. And I don't know how I should order this. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go backwards a little bit and basically take you through the structure of this server room. 90% of the server room is actually 286 machines, and this is like, I said this was a long time ago, but really it's not that long ago. Like, 286 machines had no place anywhere in business at this time. They weren't even worth putting in a museum. But we needed them because all of our infrastructure ran on serial cards that only fit in ISA ports. And if anybody knows ISA ports, they know they're pretty hard to come by, unless you want to spend a ton of money to retrofit them into modern servers. So we're sort of stuck with these really crappy old machines that we would just Frankenstein together and order parts off eBay so that we could patch them together when they failed. And it was insane. We had like one machine per customer, no redundancy, of course, and like a bucket of spare parts, and maybe like 2 spares sitting around, just like dying to get on the field. And so, if you know 286 desktop machines, they're not really the most formidable hardware. What happens during this power move is it all sort of gets moved around and rewired, and everything is okay. And we're only there for like 8 hours at this point. And they finally feel it's go time. We're going to switch everything on, and we'll be good to go. We'll run a couple tests. And so they flip the switch, and every single one of those machines blows up. Like, blows up. Smoke everywhere. And it just comes right out of the back of the power supply of every machine. Just, and it sounded like that, but like times about 120. And so my first thought, of course, is that my life is over. You know, like literally that I was going to die in a fire, because this wasn't the safest. We didn't have halon. Like, there's nothing in the server room that's going to save me from a fire. And like the second tinier thought was that the whole company's out of business. Like, I was just like, I'm gonna die, and the company's going out of business. But so I'm just running around, and I'm like, I saw sparks, I saw smoke, but nothing's on fire. And I was very, very pleased, but I mean, I wasn't really pleased. I can't say that I was pleased at the time because my heart was just not even working at all. But it was good news. And the reason for this was that this smoke was actually, it was probably 90% dust. Because these machines have just been running for ages and ages and totally like neglected. And when they started up, so what actually happened to the power was they had, I guess, cross-connected some wires, and I'm not an electrician, and I don't really remember the details. Essentially, we were getting double the power. Exactly.
240 volts. Yep.
Yes, we were putting 240 volts to these rinky-dink desktop machines from 1982, and they couldn't handle it. But they tried. They tried really, really hard. So that's why they're just like, okay, we're going now, and they just explode. And so all this like dust, which they weren't just like caked in dust, but they like all the dust from the whole machine was just propelled by the fan going nuts and just spewing it all over the room. So another plug for mainframes. The mainframe actually had a 240 ceiling, so it was fine, luckily, because that would have been a nightmare. But we're still out like 120 machines at this point. And I look at my bucket, and I look at my like 2 spare machines, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna go to work. So I ended up putting this back together somehow. I was at work for 36 hours, and we would just sort of bring up, I'd just be looking at these machines and I'd be like, okay, these guys pay us way more than these guys. So we're gonna do that one first, then we're gonna do that one, and these guys, I don't know if they're even a customer of ours anymore. This thing I think is just running, so let's just leave that one to last and wait until someone calls us. And eventually we got it all back together. I got it all back together, and and the company survived somehow. But yeah, lessons, don't manage your own hardware if you can avoid it, I would say. Especially not these days when you have a choice. Don't implement anything that requires an ISA port in 2015. Not even for fun, not even once, not even for a hackathon. I don't care how much of a hipster you are. And really, like, you know, take care of your ops staff, because they're the ones who are going to save your ass. And you know, you're always going to have something that's could potentially bankrupt your business, and it's probably not what you expect. So try and think of the edge cases.